No one is loyal forever. The heart bends, breaks, or barters itself away when the winds turn cold, and the promises of yesterday grow thin. In the shadowed halls of Winterfell, where the Stark banner hangs heavy with frost and blood, loyalty is a fleeting guest, a wolf that howls one night and vanishes into the snow by dawn. Why does this ancient seat, carved from the bones of the North, breed betrayal, as surely as it breeds honor? Why does the house that kneels to duty find its knees bloodied by the blades of those it trusted most? The answer lies not in the stone nor the snow, but in the hearts of men, where the seeds of treachery take root long before the first sword is drawn. Winterfell is a mirror reflecting the truth of those who walk its halls. It does not lie. It does not flatter. It is a crucible forging heroes and traitors alike, revealing what men are when the world demands they choose. Eddard Stark, called Ned by those who loved him, stood tall in these halls, his honor as unyielding as the wall itself. He believed in justice, in oaths, in the bonds of blood and banner. He taught his children, Robb Sansa, Arya Bran Rickon, and even Jon the Bastard he raised as his own, to trust, to love, to hold fast to the old ways. He walked the gods wood, prayed to the weirwood, sought guidance from the silent gods of the North. His was a heart of winter, steady and cold, but warm with the fire of family. Yet honor is a blade that cuts both ways. Ned's faith in men, in the goodness he saw in Robert Baratheon, in the sanctity of the small council, in the very idea of a king's justice, blinded him to the serpents coiled beneath the Iron Throne. He saw truth as a shield. But in King's Landing, truth is a noose. Ned's journey to the south began with a letter, a plea from his king. His friend Robert Baratheon needed him, needed his hand to steady a realm fracturing under the weight of debt, intrigue, and rebellion. Ned did not want the title. He was Lord of Winterfell, Warden of the North, content to rule his people, to raise his children, to live as his ancestors had. But duty called, and Ned Stark answered. He rode to King's Landing with his daughters Sansa and Arya, leaving Catelyn and his sons behind. He carried Winterfell's ideals with him: honor, trust, justice. But the South was no place for such things. The court was a nest of vipers, each smile a mask, each word a weapon. Ned believed he could navigate it, that his integrity would be his strength. He was wrong. Robert Baratheon was the first to betray Ned, though not with malice. Their bond was forged in the fires of rebellion when they toppled Aerys Targaryen, the Mad King, and claimed the Iron Throne. They were brothers in all but blood, their friendship tempered by battles, by shared loss, by the memory of Lyanna Stark, Ned's sister, whom Robert loved and lost. But Robert was no king. He was a warrior, a reveler, a man who craved the thrill of battle but loathed the burdens of rule. As king, he drowned in wine and women, in the comforts of a crown he never truly wanted. He left Ned to clean the rot from King's Landing, to stand alone against the lions, the spiders, the mockingbirds. Robert's negligence was a betrayal, not of intent, but of absence. He loved Ned, called him brother, but love is not loyalty. When Ned uncovered the truth of Joffrey's parentage, when he stood before the Iron Throne to proclaim the boy a bastard, he did so for Robert's memory, for the friend he had fought beside. But Robert was gone, gored by a boar, lost to his own excesses, and memory is a poor ally. Peter Baelish called. Littlefinger was a different kind of traitor. His betrayal was born of ambition, a hunger that gnawed at him from the shadows of his low birth. As a boy in Riverrun, he was a ward, a shadow beside the Tullys, and their allies the Starks. He loved Catelyn Tully, or so he claimed, a love that burned bright in his youth, but twisted into something darker. As the years passed, in Winterfell, he was a guest, a clever boy with a quick tongue, welcomed at the Stark hearth. But love in Littlefinger's heart was a coin to be spent, a tool to be wielded, when Ned came to King's Landing as Hand of the King. Littlefinger offered counsel, friendship, a hand to guide him through the maze of court. He spoke of alliances of secrets of the Game of Thrones. Every word was a thread in a web, every smile a trap. Littlefinger did not hate Ned. He did not need to. Ned was an obstacle, a piece to be moved, then discarded. Ned trusted Littlefinger not out of naivety, but out of necessity. He needed allies, men who knew the South's ways. Littlefinger played the part well, offering information, arranging meetings, whispering of Cersei's plots. But his loyalty was a lie. When Ned planned to seize the throne for Stannis, Robert's true heir, Littlefinger saw his chance. He paid the city watch the gold cloaks to turn on Ned's men. In the throne room, as Ned stood surrounded, Littlefinger held a dagger to his throat, his mocking smile a blade of its own. "I did warn you not to trust me," he said, and in that moment, Ned's fate was sealed. Littlefinger's betrayal was not personal. It was the game Winterfell had welcomed him as a boy, had given him a place at its hearth, had treated him as kin. But Winterfell could not see the venom in his heart, the hunger that would one day choke the North. Cersei Lannister, golden and venomous, saw Ned's honor as a tool to be twisted, his mercy as a challenge to be crushed. She was no mere queen, but a lion, her claws sharpened by years of defending her children. Joffrey, Myrcella Tommen, her heart, her legacy, her reason to fight. Ned's investigation into Jon Arryn's death led him to a dangerous truth. Cersei's children were not Robert's, but Jaime's, born of incest, a secret that threatened the Lannister name. When Ned confronted her in the Godswood, when he offered mercy, warned her to flee with her children, he believed she would bend. He saw a mother desperate to protect her young. He believed a mother's love would outweigh her pride. But Cersei was not just a mother. She was a Lannister, born of Casterly Rock, raised on power and cunning. "When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die," she told him, and she meant it. Cersei betrayed Ned, not with a blade, but with strategy. She used his mercy against him, buying time to secure Joffrey's claim. She ensured his arrest, his trial, his execution. Ned's honor, forged in Winterfell's snows, demanded he offer her a chance. Cersei's survival, forged in the South's intrigues, demanded she take it. She did not hate Ned. She respected him in her way, but respect is not mercy. In their clash, Winterfell's ideals met the world's reality, and ideals bled first. When Ned knelt before the great sept of Baelor, when Joffrey called for his head, Cersei's victory was complete. But it was a hollow one, for Ned's death lit a fire in the north that would burn her house to ash. Ned's fall was not the first betrayal Winterfell endured, nor the last. The Starks have always been steadfast, and steadfastness invites treachery. Long before Ned, the histories speak of the Grey Starks, a cadet branch who rose against their kin, aligning with the Boltons in rebellion. Their line ended in blood. Their name erased their tower, a ruin. They speak of Skagosi clans who wavered when winters grew too harsh, their loyalty to Winterfell bending under the weight of survival. They speak of ancient lords of Bannerman, who swore oaths only to break them, when power called Winterfell's strength. Its unyielding heart draws the envious, the ambitious, the weak. It is a beacon in the dark, a prize too great for lesser men to resist. The Starks ask for loyalty. But loyalty is a currency. The world does not mint in abundance. They ask for trust, but trust is a blade turned inward. Ned's death was a lesson one his children would learn in fire and ash, in the long years that followed. It was a spark that ignited the North, that crowned a boy, king that set the stage for greater betrayals. Winterfell did not betray Ned Stark. It shaped him, raised him, sent him into the world with a heart too noble for its cruelty. His fall was not the end, but the beginning, a wound that would bleed through his house, his children, his legacy. The North remembers, they say, and Winterfell's memory is long. But memory is a poor shield against the blades that follow. Robb Stark, the young wolf, inherited his father's honor, but tempered it with fire. He was no lord lingering in halls. He was a king, a warrior, a boy, forced to become a man. When news of Ned's execution reached the north, the lords of Winterfell rallied to Robb, proclaiming him king in the north. He was 16, broad-shouldered, with his mother's auburn hair and his father's steady gaze. He carried Ice, the great sword of House Stark, and with it the weight of his father's legacy. Robb rode south, not for vengeance, but for justice, to free his sisters, to punish the Lannisters, to protect his people. The North followed their banners raised in fury and grief. Umber, Karstark, Mormont, Hornwood, Serwyn. They saw in Robb a king to rival the legends, a wolf to lead them through the storm. Robb was no mere boy. He won battles outmaneuvering Tywin Lannister, the Lion of the South. At the Whispering Wood, he captured Jaime Lannister, a prize that shook the Lannister cause. At Oxcross, he crushed their armies, proving the North's strength. He held River Run allied with his Tully kin, and for a time, it seemed the young wolf could not be stopped. But Winterfell's curse followed him. Robb believed in the oaths of his bannermen, in the sanctity of guest, right in the bonds of love. He trusted too much, loved too deeply, and in that trust he sowed the seeds of his ruin. His marriage to Talisa Maegor was his first betrayal, not of his people, but of a promise to secure passage across the Twins. Robb had sworn to marry a daughter of Walder Frey, the grasping, prideful lord of the Crossing. It was a political alliance, a necessity of war. But Robb's heart led him elsewhere. Talisa, a healer from Volantis, captured his love with her compassion, her courage, her defiance of the world's cruelty. He married her in secret, breaking his vow to Frey. It was a small betrayal, a personal choice. But in the Game of Thrones, no betrayal is small. Walder Frey, bitter and vindictive, saw insult where Robb saw love. The Freys who had knelt to the king in the north began to whisper of vengeance. The Freys were not alone. The Boltons, led by Roose. Bolton, lord of the Dreadfort, swore fealty to Robb, but watched with cold eyes. Rose was no man of passion, but of calculation. His loyalty, a mask worn lightly. The Karstarks, led by Rickard. Karstark followed Robb until vengeance clouded their hearts. When Robb executed Rickard for murdering Lannister prisoners, the Karstarks abandoned him, their banners leaving his army weakened. Each lord had sworn to serve, to fight, to die for their king. But oaths are brittle, and men are weaker still. Winterfell's ideals, honor, trust, duty, demanded loyalty. The world demanded survival. The Red Wedding was the culmination, a symphony of betrayal that drowned the North in blood. Walder Frey invited Robb Catelyn and their bannermen to the Twins for a wedding, Edmure Tully to a Frey girl, a new alliance to mend old wounds. Guest right was sacred, a law older than the wall, a promise of safety under a host's roof. Robb trusted it. Catelyn trusted it. They sat at Frey's table, ate his bread and salt, raised cups to peace. But Frey's hospitality was a lie. As the musicians played The Rains of Castamere, a Lannister song of doom, the trap closed. Crossbows fired, swords flashed, and the hall became a slaughterhouse. Robb's men fell. His bannermen cut down his wolf. Grey Wind, chained and killed. Talisa, pregnant with Robb's child, was stabbed her life, bleeding out on the floor. Catelyn, desperate, seized a Frey hostage, begged for her son's life. But Roose Bolton stepped forward, his dagger cold and precise. "The Lannisters send their regards," he said, and drove the blade into Robb's heart. Catelyn's scream was her last, her throat cut as the hall burned red. The Red Wedding was not born in the Twins or the Dreadfort. It was born in Winterfell in the moment Robb chose to trust men whose hearts were weaker than his own. Walder Frey's pride, Roose Bolton's ambition, the Karstarks' vengeance. These were the blades that killed the young wolf. Each had knelt to him, sworn fealty, called him king. Each betrayed him when the world offered a better price. The North remembers, they say, But memory is a poor shield against steel. Robb's crown forged in hope was melted in blood, and Winterfell's halls grew colder still. Theon Greyjoy's betrayal cuts differently, not because it was crueler, but because it was closer. Raised as a ward, a brother in all but name, Theon was Ned's hostage, taken from the Iron Islands after Balon Greyjoy's rebellion. He grew in Winterfell's courtyard, sparring with Robb, teasing Jon, learning under Ned's stern gaze. Winterfell was his home, or as close to one as an Ironborn could claim. He ate at the Stark table, shared their laughter, bore their discipline. Yet he was never truly one of them. The name Greyjoy, the call of the sea, the weight of his father's expectations. These were chains Ned could not break. When Balon named Theon heir, when the Iron Islands rose again, Theon faced a choice: loyalty to the Starks, who raised him, or to the father who scorned him. Theon chose the sea. He returned to Pike seeking Balon's approval, seeking to prove himself a true Ironborn. His father mocked him, called him soft, a wolf in squid's clothing. To earn his place, Theon proposed a daring plan to take Winterfell, the heart of the North, while Robb was south. It was a betrayal born of hunger, not hatred. Theon did not hate the Starks. He loved them in his way. Robb's camaraderie, Bran's trust, even Ned's fairness. But love is not loyalty. Theon led his men to Winterfell, scaled its walls, seized its halls. He declared himself Prince of Winterfell, a title as hollow as his heart. He held Bran and Rickon hostage, ordered the castle's surrender. When resistance grew, when the North refused to bow, Theon's desperation turned to cruelty. He staged the deaths of 2 miller's boys, claiming them as Bran and Rickon to prove his strength. It was a lie, a betrayal of the boys he had known as brothers. Theon's reign was brief. Winterfell's people resisted its walls, closing in. When Ramsay Bolton, then a bastard named Snow, arrived, Theon believed him an ally, but Ramsay betrayed him too, burning Winterfell, taking Theon prisoner, breaking him into reek. Theon's betrayal was not a dagger in the dark, but a fire in the hearth, a flame that consumed him, as surely as it consumed the home he had sworn to protect. When he stood in the ruins, when Ramsay's tortures stripped him of name and soul, it was Winterfell's stones that bore witness to his regret. Winterfell does not forgive, but it does not forget. It holds its betrayers close, forcing them to face the weight of their choices. Catelyn Stark, the mother of Winterfell, felt betrayal's sting as keenly as her sons. She was no warrior, no king, but a lady whose strength lay in her love for her family. She urged Ned to stay in the North, to shun the South's intrigues, but he went for honor. She counseled Robb, warned him of Walder Frey's pride, but he chose love. She freed Jaime Lannister, hoping to save Sansa and Arya, only to be scorned by her own bannermen, who saw her act as treason. At the Red Wedding, she watched her son die, her pleas for mercy drowned in blood. She seized a Frey hostage, offered her life for Robb's. But the world cared nothing for a mother's love. Her throat was cut, her body thrown into the river, a final betrayal of the dignity she had held so dear. Catelyn's betrayals were not her own, but those of the world around her. Robert's negligence, Littlefinger's lies, Robb's choices, the Frey's treachery. Winterfell shaped her to protect her family, but it could not shield her from the world's cruelty. Why does Winterfell breed betrayal? Because it is a place of ideals, in a world that chews ideals to dust. The Starks, with their honor, their duty, their love for one another, ask too much of men. They ask for loyalty in a world where survival demands deceit. They ask for trust in a world where trust is a blade turned inward. Winterfell is not cursed. It is simply honest. It shows men for what they are, not what they swear to be. Ned, Robb, Theon, Catelyn. They did not fall because Winterfell was weak. They fell because Winterfell was strong, because its strength exposed their frailties, and the frailties of those they trusted. Betrayal is not a single act. It is a slow poison seeping through the cracks of human weakness. It begins not with a blade, but with a thought, a doubt, a whisper of ambition or fear. In Winterfell, those whispers echo louder, amplified by the weight of duty, the cold of the north, the unyielding gaze of the old gods. The Starks do not see the whispers coming. They trust, they love, they believe, and in that belief, they sow the seeds of their own ruin. Winterfell does not breed betrayal because it is cruel. It breeds betrayal because it is kind, because it dares to hope for a world that does not exist. This is but the first chapter of Winterfell's tale, a tale written in blood and snow. Ned's honor, Robb's trust, Theon's hunger, Catelyn's love. These are the seeds planted deep in Winterfell's soil. They do not die with their bearers. They grow twisting through the years, shaping the children who remain. Sansa, Arya, Jon, Bran, Rickon. They carry the scars of their father, their brother, their mother. They walk through the fire of betrayal, not to escape it, but to learn its lessons. Winterfell endures its walls unbowed, its heart unbroken. But its scars run deep, and its lessons are colder than any winter. The tale continues, its children stepping into the fire of vengeance, where the flames of betrayal burn brighter still. Betrayal does not end with blood. It lingers, a wound that festers, a fire that demands to be fed. In Winterfell's halls, where the ghosts of Ned and Robb whisper through the frost, the next generation learned betrayal's lessons, not to avoid it, but to wield it. Sansa Stark, Arya Stark, the Boltons, each walked through the crucible of treachery, emerging not whole, but hardened. Why does Winterfell breed betrayal? Because it is a beacon, drawing the ambitious, the envious, the desperate, who see in its walls a chance to rise or to ruin. Winterfell does not create traitors. It reveals them, and in their revealing, it forges those who survive into something sharper, colder, stronger. Sansa Stark was a girl of dreams when she left Winterfell, her heart full of songs, her eyes bright with visions of knights and princes. She saw King's Landing as a fairy tale, Joffrey Baratheon as her golden king Cersei, Lannister as a queen to emulate. But the South stripped her of those dreams, one betrayal at a time. Joffrey was no prince, but a monster. His smile, a mask for cruelty. He humiliated her, beat her, forced her to gaze upon her father's head on a spike. Cersei, her queen, offered motherly words, but wove webs of deceit, using Sansa as a pawn in her game against the North. When Ned was executed, Sansa's world shattered, but her betrayals were only beginning. She was a hostage, a trophy, a tool to secure the North's submission. Every kind word was a lie, every promise a trap. Petyr Baelish. Littlefinger was Sansa's next betrayer, and his was the cruelest cut. He saved her from King's Landing, spiriting her away after Joffrey's death, hiding her in the Vale under the guise of Elaine Stone. He promised protection, love, a future where she could be more than a pawn. But Littlefinger's gifts were never free. His love was a leash, his promises a debt. He saw in Sansa a shadow of Catelyn, the woman he had loved and lost, and he sought to mold her into his vision, a queen, a partner, a piece in his endless game. He taught her to play, to watch, to lie. But every lesson was a chain. Sansa learned because she had to, because survival demanded it. She learned to see through smiles, to hear the truth in silences, to wield words as weapons. But she never trusted him fully. Winterfell had taught her that trust is a luxury no Stark can afford. When Sansa fled the Vale, escaping Littlefinger's grasp, she sought Winterfell, the home she had lost. The castle was in ruins, held by the Boltons, its halls defiled by Ramsay's cruelty. She found refuge with Jon Snow, her half-brother, at Castle Black, but even that reunion was shadowed by betrayal's legacy. Jon was no longer the boy she had known, but a man scarred by his own betrayals, a resurrected Lord Commander with a war to fight. Sansa brought her own scars, her own lessons, and together they vowed to retake Winterfell, But Littlefinger followed his whispers of power trailing like smoke. He offered the Knights of the Vale an army to tip the scales against the Boltons. Sansa accepted, because she had no choice, but she knew the cost. Littlefinger's betrayal was not a blade, but ambition, a desire to bind her to him, to make her his queen, in a north he would control. The Battle of the Bastards was Sansa's first triumph, but it was no victory of honor. Jon fought with heart, with fury, leading his men against Ramsay's forces. But it was Sansa's strategy, her secret alliance with Littlefinger, that won the day. The Knights of the Vale charged at the crucial moment, crushing the Bolton army, reclaiming Winterfell. Yet Sansa's silence, her refusal to tell Jon of the Vale's aid, was a betrayal of trust, a choice born of necessity. She knew Jon's heart knew he would reject Littlefinger's help, knew he would fight and die without it. She chose victory over honesty, and Winterfell was theirs. But the cost lingered, a fracture between brother and sister, a reminder that even Starks betray when the world demands it. Littlefinger's final betrayal came in Winterfell's Great Hall, where he sought to drive a wedge between Sansa and Arya. He whispered of Arya's list, her kills, her strangeness, painting her as a threat. He spoke to Sansa of power, of ruling alone, of a north without rivals. But Sansa had learned his game. She saw through his lies, saw the hunger in his eyes. Arya, the shadow with a needle, saw it too. Together they turned his trap against him. In a trial before the Lords of the North, Sansa named Littlefinger's crimes his betrayal of Ned, his role in the war, his schemes against the Starks. Arya's blade ended his life, a swift cut across his throat, but Sansa's judgment ended his legacy. Littlefinger had played the game well, but Winterfell was no place for mockingbirds. It was a wolf's den, and the wolves had learned to bite. Arya Stark was betrayal's student and its master. The world took everything from her: her father, her mother, her brothers, her home. She watched Ned's execution from the crowd, a girl of 11, her screams lost in the cheers. She learned of Robb's slaughter, of Catelyn's death, believed. Sansa lost to the south. Every loss was a betrayal of trust, of family, of the world's promise that good prevails. She fled King's Landing, a fugitive, her path marked by hardship. The Hound, Sandor. Clegane became her captor, then her companion, but even he betrayed her, leaving her to die after a fight. In Braavos, among the faceless men, she sought to become. No one to shed her pain, her name, her past. But Winterfell's call was stronger. She could not escape the wolf in her blood. Arya's training made her a weapon. Her list of names, a litany of vengeance. Joffrey, Cersei, Walder, Frey, Littlefinger, each had taken from her, and she meant to take in return. When she returned to Westeros, she began her work. At the Twins, she killed Walder Frey's sons, baked them into a pie, fed it to their father. She slit Walder's throat, wearing a face not her own, and ended House Frey with poison, a feast turned to death. It was justice, but it was also betrayal of guest right, of the laws she had once honored. Arya did not care. Winterfell had taught her that laws do not protect the innocent. Only blades do. In Winterfell, Arya found Sansa, but trust was hard won. Littlefinger's whispers sowed doubt, painting Arya as a killer, Sansa as a schemer. But the sisters were Starks, bound by blood, by loss. They saw through the lies, united against their common foe. Arya's betrayal of Littlefinger was swift, her blade a whisper in the Great Hall. But her path was not just vengeance. It was survival, a refusal to let betrayal define her. She fought for Winterfell, faced the Night King, killed him with a dagger of Valyrian steel. Yet each kill, each victory left her emptier. Vengeance was a fire, and Arya burned, but she did not break. Winterfell made her a wolf, and wolves endure. The Boltons rose in Ramsay, were Winterfell's darkest betrayers, not because they were crueler, but because they were patient. For centuries, House Bolton knelt to House Stark, their flayed banners a grim reminder of their true nature. Roose Bolton, Lord of the Dreadfort, swore fealty to Robb, fought beside him, advised him. But his loyalty was a mask, his heart cold as his steel. At the Red Wedding, he struck his dagger, ending Robb's life, his ambition, claiming the North. Tywin Lannister rewarded him, naming him Warden of the North, granting him Winterfell. But Roose was no king. He was a leech feeding on Winterfell's strength, claiming its halls, but never its heart. Ramsay, Bolton Roose's bastard son, was worse a beast in human skin, his betrayal not of oaths, but of humanity. He tortured Theon Greyjoy, turning him into Reek, a broken thing without a name. He married Sansa, a cruel mockery of alliance, and defiled her in Winterfell's chambers, desecrating the Stark legacy. Ramsay's cruelty was no strategy, but a hunger, a need to break all that was good. He ruled Winterfell through fear. Its people cowed, its spirit crushed. Yet the Boltons fell. Jon and Sansa's army, bolstered by the Vale, crushed Ramsay at the Battle of the Bastards. Sansa fed him to his own hounds, a fitting end for a beast. Roose, betrayed by his son, died earlier, poisoned by his own blood. The Boltons' banners burned their name, erased. Betrayal may win battles, but it does not win wars. Other betrayals scarred Winterfell in this time of vengeance. The Umber's sworn bannermen gave Rickon Stark to Ramsay, trading loyalty for survival. Smallgen Umber, once a fierce ally, knelt to the Boltons, delivering the youngest Stark to his death. Rickon, a boy of 6 when he fled. Winterfell was no threat, but Ramsay killed him an arrow through his heart as he ran to Jon. The Karstarks, already fractured by Robb's execution of Rickard, refused Jon's call, their pride outweighing their oaths. Even the wildlings, saved by Jon from the White Walkers, wavered when the North's wars grew dire. Winterfell's beacon draws all the loyal, the treacherous, the lost. It demands loyalty, but the North is harsh. Its winters harsher, and men bend to survive. Sansa and Arya learned this not through sermons, but through scars. They did not escape betrayal. They endured it, shaped it, turned it into strength. Sansa's justice against Littlefinger was cold, calculated, a queen's verdict. Arya's vengeance was swift, a killer's art, but it left her searching for more. The Boltons' fall restored Winterfell, but its halls remained haunted, its stones stained with blood. Winterfell breeds betrayal because it must. It is a forge, and betrayal is the flame that tempers those who survive. Sansa became a queen, Arya a wanderer, but neither was whole. The North remembers not to punish, but to endure. Vengeance, though, is a fire that consumes. It warmed Sansa's heart when Littlefinger fell, but it did not heal her wounds. It drove Arya's blade, but it did not fill the void of her losses. The Boltons' ruin cleansed Winterfell, but its scars remained. Winterfell's children learned to wield betrayal to turn its poison against their enemies, but they paid a price. The fire of vengeance burns bright, but it leaves only ash. The Starks endured their banners, raised their home reclaimed, but the tale is not over. Winterfell's lessons. Continue its children carrying the fire forward into the burden of duty where heavier chains await. Duty is a chain heavier than any crown, sharper than any blade. In Winterfell's frost-bitten halls, where the Stark name echoes through centuries of sacrifice, duty binds the living to the dead, the present to the past. Jon Snow, Daenerys, Targaryen, and the North itself carried this burden, each shaped by betrayal's lessons, each tested by Winterfell's unyielding heart. Why does Winterfell breed betrayal? Because it demands duty in a world that rewards deceit, because it asks its children to carry chains no man can bear. Unbroken duty is Winterfell's curse, its strength, its doom. Jon Snow, the truest son of Winterfell, was Betrayal's child and its agent. Raised as Ned Stark's bastard, he bore the name Snow, a mark of shame that shaped his heart. Winterfell gave him love. Ned's stern guidance, Robb's brotherhood, Arya's fierce loyalty, Sansa's distant affection, but it could not give him a name. He was always apart, seated at the lower tables, reminded of his place. Yet Ned raised him as a son, taught him honor duty, the weight of the Stark name. When Jon joined the Night's Watch, he sought purpose, a place where bastards could rise where his birth would not define him. He swore an oath to protect the realm, to stand against the dark, to forsake family love and crowns. But the Watch betrayed him. Jon rose quickly, earning the trust of Lord Commander Jorah Mormont, who gave him Longclaw, a Valyrian steel blade. He befriended Samwell. Tarly led men against wildlings, faced the White Walkers. But his choices saving the wildlings, allying with Tormund Giantsbane, drew the ire of his brothers. They saw him as a traitor, a lover of savages, a breaker of tradition. When he returned from a mission to Hardhome, having saved thousands of wildlings from the dead, his brothers struck. Alliser Thorne, Ollie and others drove knives into his heart, each stab a cry of, "For the Watch." Jon fell in the snow, his blood pooling beneath Castle Black's walls. His resurrection, a gift of Melisandre and the Red God, was no salvation. It was a heavier chain binding him to a world that did not want him. Jon's return to Winterfell was no homecoming, but a call to war. He learned of Sansa's escape, of Ramsay's hold on their home. Together, they rallied the North, seeking to reclaim Winterfell from the Boltons. Jon fought with heart, with fury, leading wildlings, loyal houses, and a ragtag army against Ramsay's forces. The Battle of the Bastards was a slaughter. Jon nearly crushed his men, overwhelmed Sansa's Knights of the Vale. A secret she kept from him turned the tide. Winterfell was theirs, but Jon's trust in Sansa wavered. Her silence was a betrayal, small but sharp, a reminder that even family plays the game. The North crowned Jon king in the North, their voices raised in the Great Hall. But crowns are chains, and Jon's was heavy. Jon's duty was to the North, to the living, to the fight against the dead. He saw the White Walkers, knew their threat, knew the realm's survival depended on unity. When Daenerys Targaryen landed in Westeros, Jon sought her aid, her dragons, her armies. He traveled to Dragonstone, bent the knee, pledged his loyalty. But the North betrayed him. His lords Glover Royce, even Sansa, saw weakness in his submission division where he saw necessity. They wanted a king, not a vassal. Jon's duty bound him to Daenerys, but it alienated his people. Winterfell shaped him to serve, to sacrifice, but it could not protect him from the cost. Daenerys Targaryen came to Winterfell not as a conqueror, but as an ally, her dragons a promise of fire against the cold. She had crossed the narrow sea, freed slaves, broken chains, built an empire on the ashes of her enemies. But betrayal was her shadow. Her brother Viserys, her Khal, Drogo, her advisors. Each had failed her, turned or died. In Westeros, she sought a throne, a home, a legacy. Winterfell was her test. She fought for the North, bled for it, lost her beloved Jorah Mormont to the Night King's army, saw her dragon, Viserion, fall to the dead. She stood in Winterfell's courtyard, her unsullied and Dothraki beside her, ready to face the long night. Yet the North did not love her. The lords of Winterfell, the people of the North, saw Daenerys as a foreigner, a Targaryen with fire in her blood and conquest in her heart. They whispered of her dragons, her armies, her claim to the Iron Throne. Sansa, now Lady of Winterfell, met her with courtesy, but no warmth. Arya watched her with a killer's eyes. Jon gave her his loyalty, his heart, but even he could not give her the North's trust. When Samwell Tarly and Bran revealed Jon's true name, Aegon Targaryen, son of Rhaegar, heir to the Iron Throne, it became a blade between them. Jon's duty to the truth, to his family, forced him to tell her. Daenerys, betrayed by her advisors, Her allies, her dreams of a united Westeros, saw Jon's claim as the final blow. Winterfell did not betray Daenerys. It simply reminded her that fire cannot warm a throne built on ash. Jon's betrayal of Daenerys was his heaviest chain. He loved her, believed in her vision of a better world, fought beside her against the dead. At Winterfell, they planned their stand, their armies united against the Night King. The battle was chaos, whites swarming dragons clashing the living, falling. Jon faced the dead, his sword cutting through ice and bone. But it was Arya who ended the Night King, her dagger piercing his heart. Daenerys's dragons burned the whites, her armies held the line. But the victory was hollow. The North still did not trust her. When she marched south, when she burned King's Landing in a fury of grief and rage, Jon saw her truth. Her vision of liberation had become tyranny, her fire, a curse. In the throne room beneath the Iron Throne's jagged edges, he drove a dagger into her heart. It was not vengeance, but duty to the realm, to the innocent, to the memory of Ned's honor. It broke him as surely as it broke her. Jon's exile to the Wall was his final betrayal, not of others, but of himself. The North crowned him king, then abandoned him when he bent the knee. Daenerys gave him love, then forced his hand. The realm spared his life, but took his freedom. He returned to the snows of Castle Black, a king without a crown, a hero without a home. Winterfell shaped Jon to choose duty over love, but it could not shield him from the pain. His chains were his own, forged in the crucible of betrayal, tempered by the cold of the North, the Night King, the White Walkers. The long night they were no betrayers, but they were Winterfell's test. The Starks prayed to the old gods, their faces carved in weirwood, their eyes blind to mortal suffering. The gods offered no protection, no answers. Bran Stark now, the three-eyed raven, saw the Night King's truth. Death comes for all, sparing neither king nor pawn. Winterfell stood against the dead, its walls a bulwark, its people a shield. The battle was a storm of ice and fire, of screams and silence. Theon Greyjoy, redeemed in death, fell, defending Bran, his last act, a repayment for his betrayal. Jorah Mormont died for Daenerys, his sword raised to the end. Thousands perished, their blood soaking the snow. The dead did not betray, but they did not save. Winterfell's duty was to stand, and it stood, but its scars ran deeper than any blade. Beyond Winterfell, betrayal shaped the world. Stannis Baratheon, the rightful king to some, sought Winterfell as a stepping stone to the Iron Throne. He marched through snow, his army starving, his heart hardened by duty. Melisandre, his Red Priestess, promised victory, but her visions betrayed him. He sacrificed his daughter, Shireen, to the Red God's flames, believing it would win the war. It did not. His army broke, his wife hanged herself, and Stannis fell at Winterfell's gates, cut down by Brienne of Tarth. His betrayal was not of the Starks, but of himself, a warning that duty, without humanity, is a hollow chain. Winterfell did not touch Stannis, but its shadow loomed, its strength exposing his fragility. Melisandre, the Red Woman, was another betrayed by her own faith. She saw Jon as the prince that was promised, believed Winterfell the heart of the fight against the dark. She brought Jon back from death, lit fires against the cold, but her visions faltered. The North did not embrace her, and her God did not answer. When she left Winterfell, her purpose spent. She walked into the snow and died her betrayal, one of belief. Winterfell did not make her a traitor. It showed her the limits of her fire. Why does Winterfell breed betrayal? Because duty is a forge, and betrayal is the hammer. The Starks ask their children to carry the North's weight, to stand against the cold, to honor the past. But the world does not honor duty. It rewards cunning ambition, survival. Jon and Daenerys bore Winterfell's chains, but they could not bear them unbroken. Jon's exile, Daenerys' death, the North's survival. These were not victories but endurance. Duty does not end betrayal. It shapes it, tempers. It turns it into a blade that cuts both ways. Winterfell's walls stood, its people lived, but its heart remained scarred. The tale nears its end, its children carrying the burden forward into the revelation of endurance, where the final truth awaits. Endurance is not victory. It is survival. A refusal to break when the world demands it. In Winterfell's ancient halls, where the Stark name is carved in stone, and blood endurance is the final lesson of betrayal. Bran Stark, Sansa Stark, Arya Stark. The children of Winterfell carry its scars, not as burdens, but as armor. Why does Winterfell always breed betrayal? Because it must. Betrayal is the forge, the fire, the cold that shapes what comes after. Winterfell does not fall. It endures, and in its endurance lies a truth colder than any winter. To live is to be betrayed, and to rise is to betray in turn. Bran Stark, the broken, became the three-eyed raven, his body bound to a chair, his mind boundless as the sky. He was a boy, once climbing Winterfell's walls, dreaming of nights, laughing with his siblings. A fall broke his legs. A betrayal by Jaime Lannister to protect Cersei's secret. But Bran's true betrayal was of himself. The three-eyed raven took his heart, his warmth, his humanity. He saw all, past, present, future, the betrayals that shaped Winterfell, the choices that broke it. He saw Ned's honor fall to Littlefinger's dagger, Robb's trust shattered at the Red Wedding, Jon's duty stained by Daenerys' blood. He saw Sansa's cunning, Arya's vengeance, Theon's regret. He saw the Night King's march, the long night's terror, the blood on Winterfell's snows. But Bran felt nothing. Was this betrayal? To see all and care for none, to sit in Winterfell's godswood watching as his family fought. Bled died. Bran's visions made him a seer, but they unmade him as a Stark. When the Night King came, Bran was the bait, the key to the dead's defeat. He sat beneath the weirwood, his eyes distant, as Theon died for him, as Arya struck the killing blow. When the war ended, when the Iron Throne called Bran was chosen king, not of the North, but of the Six Kingdoms. He ruled from King's Landing, his wheelchair a throne, his mind a library of the world's pain. But he was no longer Bran Stark. He was something else. Something colder. Winterfell did not betray Bran. It freed him, but at a cost. No child should pay. His endurance was not of the heart, but of the mind. A survival beyond human limits. Sansa Stark. The Lady of Winterfell became its queen, not through birthright, but through survival. She endured Joffrey's cruelty, Cersei's manipulations, Littlefinger's webs, Ramsay's horrors. Each betrayal was a lesson, each scar a step toward strength. As a girl, she dreamed of love, of a South filled with songs. King's Landing taught her that songs lie. Joffrey beat her, mocked her, killed her father. Cersei used her a pawn in the Game of Thrones. Littlefinger saved her, but his salvation was a cage, his lessons a chain. Ramsay, her husband by force, broke her body, but not her spirit. Sansa learned to play the game, to watch, to wait. She learned that trust is a trap, that love is a risk, that power is a shield. When Sansa reclaimed Winterfell, she did so with strategy. Not swords, she rallied the North allied with Jon, brought the Knights of the Vale to crush the Boltons. Her betrayal of Littlefinger was no act of vengeance, but of justice. A queen's verdict delivered in the Great Hall. She stood before her lords, named his crimes, his betrayal of Ned, his schemes against the Starks, his lies to fracture her family. Arya's blade ended him, but Sansa's words were the true cut. As queen in the North, Sansa ruled alone, her crown, a symbol of endurance. She rebuilt Winterfell, strengthened its walls, fed its people. She was no warrior, no seer, but a leader, her heart as cold as the snow, her mind as sharp as ice. Winterfell did not make Sansa a queen. It made her a survivor, tempered in the fire of betrayal. Arya Stark, the girl with no name, chose freedom over crowns. Her path was vengeance, her list, a litany of those who betrayed her family. Joffrey, Cersei, Walder, Frey, Littlefinger, each had taken from her, and she meant to take in return. In Braavos, she trained as a faceless man, learning to kill, to change faces, to become no one. But she was always a Stark, the wolf blood, too strong to deny. She returned to Westeros, her skills honed, her heart hardened. At the twins, she ended House Frey poisoning their feast, a mirror of the Red Wedding's treachery. In Winterfell, she saw through Littlefinger's lies, her blade swift and sure. She faced the Night King, her dagger of Valyrian steel, piercing his heart, saving Bran, saving the North. But vengeance did not fill the void. Each kill, each name crossed off left Arya emptier. Winterfell called her home, but it could not hold her. When the wars ended, when Sansa took the North's crown, Arya chose the sea. She sailed west beyond the maps, seeking what lay beyond the horizon. Her betrayal was of expectations of the life Winterfell might have demanded. A lady, a wife, a ruler. Arya was none of these. She was a wolf, and wolves do not kneel. Winterfell did not make Arya a wanderer. It made her free, but freedom is its own chain, a path with no end. Beyond Winterfell, betrayal shaped the world. Cersei Lannister, the Lion of Casterly Rock, understood betrayal's cost. Her love for her children drove her to betray all, her husband, Robert, her allies, her own blood. She poisoned enemies, manipulated kings, held the Iron Throne through cunning and fear. But she was betrayed in turn. Jaime, her brother, her lover, left her for the North, for honor, for Brienne. Her advisors faltered, her armies fell, her prophecy, a younger queen, a Valonqar, came true. Cersei's fall, crushed beneath the Red Keep with Jaime at her side, was no victory for Winterfell, but it was a mirror. Betrayal builds no legacy. Only endurance does. Winterfell never touched Cersei, but its shadow loomed, its strength exposing her fragility. Tyrion Lannister. The imp was another shaped by betrayal. His family scorned him. His father condemned him. His sister despised him. He served Daenerys, believed in her, but betrayed her when he freed Jaime, when he questioned her fire. His loyalty to the realm, to the idea of a better world, led him to Bran, to a new king. Tyrion's betrayals were not of malice, but of conscience, a dwarf caught between duty and love. Winterfell was his ally, not his home, but its endurance inspired him, its survival, a testament to the strength he sought. The North itself, its lords and people betrayed and were betrayed. The Glovers abandoned Jon when he bent the knee to Daenerys. The Royces wavered their loyalty to Sansa, tested by war's cost. The wildlings, saved by Jon, fought for Winterfell, but left when peace came, their freedom outweighing their oaths. The North is harsh, its winters harsher, and men bend to survive. Winterfell's beacon draws all, but it demands too much. Its lords, its people ask for loyalty in a world that starves it. The Starks endured, not because they were spared betrayal, but because they learned its lessons. The revelation is not that betrayal can be avoided. It cannot. The revelation is that betrayal is not the end. It is the forge, the fire, the cold that shapes what comes after. Winterfell breeds betrayal because it must. Without it, there is no strength, no wisdom, no survival. Ned's honor, Robb's trust, Theon's hunger, Catelyn's love, Sansa's cunning, Arya's vengeance, Jon's duty, Bran's sight. These are the threads of Winterfell's tapestry, woven through centuries of blood and snow. The Starks, Sansa. Arya, Bronn endure, Not because they escaped betrayal, but because they learned its price. They paid it, carried its scars, and rose. Winterfell stands, its walls unbowed, its heart unbroken. Its banners fly, its wolves howl, its children rule. Sansa's north is free. Arya's seas are vast. Bronn's kingdom is whole. But the scars remain, the lessons linger. The north remembers not to punish, but to endure. The wheel does not break. It turns, and Winterfell, with its bloodied stones and unbroken heart, turns with it. Betrayal is its fire. Endurance, its steel. To live is to be betrayed, and to rise is to betray in turn. This is Winterfell's truth, colder than any winter, sharper than any blade. If these truths stir your soul, if Winterfell's scars speak to you, join us in this journey through the ashes of Westeros. Subscribe to our channel, share this tale of blood and snow, and speak your thoughts below. Tell us what betrayals have shaped your path. The North is listening, its wolves waiting, its hearth warm for those who dare to face the cold.